In the morning, Uche rushed Mary to the hospital because she had high fever. Her body temperature was so high and she was trembling due to the fever. When the doctor examined Mary, he found out that she had malaria and her blood pressure was so high. Mary knew that the main cause of her sickness is not really malaria. Afterwards, the doctor commenced treatment and Uche left the hospital. When Uche went home to pick some items for Mary, who was in the hospital, he decided to check out the family who lived opposite his house where the husband and wife were quarreling the previous day. He noticed that only one of the two cars which used to park in front of the house was there. The red SUV was no longer parked there. Only the black one was there. The red car belonged to the woman while the black one belonged to the man. The red car was always parked in front of the house because the woman was a stay-at-home mom. Anyway, Uche continued and went into his house, hoping that they were able to peacefully settle their misunderstanding. Uche picked up some items for Mary and arranged some furniture in the house. Just as he came out of his house, he saw one of his neighbors. During a small chat with the neighbor, he told Uche that the couple living opposite them have gone their separate ways. He told Uche that the wife has taken the child away from the man. He also told Uche that another family in their estate had similar issues. When Uche heard this, he guessed that there must be a connection between all these relationship crises, even though he could not explain it. At the hospital, while Uche was away, Mary began to pray and beg God for forgiveness. She also begged God to heal the families that were suffering due to her videos. Although Mary had deleted all the sex tapes, the havoc that was caused by these tapes were far from ending. Many people had downloaded and shared the videos. In fact, the videos started becoming popular among students, especially those at the University of Lagos. Many female students joined the hashtag Men Has Come and started posting nude pictures of their ex-boyfriends. Some students even posted sex tapes of their lecturers. There was pandemonium in the University of Lagos. Many lecturers were exposed. The students who had been victims of lecturers who demand for sex in exchange for good grades didn't hold back. They posted every video and picture they had. Like a wildfire, the hashtag spread outside the University of Lagos as other women joined the trend and started posting nude pictures and sex tapes of their bosses and seniors who demanded for sex before helping them. The city of Lagos was thrown into complete confusion. All the men in the city were afraid because no one knew if anyone had secretly recorded a video of them in nasty positions or during sex. Every man in Lagos was guilty until proven innocent, and you could even see it on their faces. Mary was still in the hospital and didn't even know the extent of the damage she had caused, but Lagos was gradually burning. Mary's original sex tapes went so viral that Obi and Toby saw them. For a long time now, Obi had been trying to reach out to Mary. He was the man that released the first nasty video of Mary months ago. After Obi released Mary's tape and saw how viral it went, he regretted what he did to Mary. Since then, he had been looking for Mary. When he saw the nasty sex tapes Mary released, something in him told him that this must be from Mary because the sex tapes were edited exactly the same way he'd edited Mary's own. So as a sharp guy, he began to track Mary through the videos she released online. Obi normally used anyservice.ng to find people to work for him. So this time, he searched for a tech specialist to help him track Mary, and he found one on anyservice.ng. Fortunately, the tech guy helped him locate where Mary could be, and Obi set out to Lagos to find Mary. One morning, while Uche was preparing to go and see Mary in the hospital, he heard a knock on the door. It was Obi at the door. Obi introduced himself to Uche as Mari's cousin. When Uche heard that Obi was Mari's cousin, he was glad to see one of Mari's relatives. He had always wished to meet at least one person who knows Mari, so he happily took Obi to go see Mari at the hospital. At the hospital, Mary was so shocked to see Obi entering into her room. Her thoughts immediately went back to the terrible things Obi and his friends did to her. She remembered how Obi licked her sex tape. Tears filled her eyes and she began to cry. But she was not crying because of the things Obi did to her. She was crying because she had done worse than Obi. As Obi saw her crying, he fell to the ground and pleaded for Mary to forgive her. Uche could not understand what was happening between the two of them, but as a gentleman, he decided to leave the room for both of them to settle their issues. Mary was discharged 2 days after Obi visited her at the hospital. She spent a total of 10 days in the hospital. By the time she was discharged, the city of Lagos was still recovering from the effects of the hashtag she started, which says, "Men are scum." Days later, as the effects of her hashtag slowly died down, the men in Lagos became extremely wise. The side chicks and girlfriends of the wealthy men and political class began to suffer as the men in Lagos became more careful. After Mary returned from the hospital, Uche began to show her more love and affection. At last, Uche professed his love to Mary and she accepted, so they began dating. One day, Mary's phone was ringing continuously, but she refused to pick up the call. Mary now picks most of her calls in the kitchen or other places where she is sure that Uche would not hear anything from the conversation. This was beginning to disturb Uche, so he decided to secretly monitor Mary. One fateful day, Mary forgot her phone in the sitting room while she was in the kitchen. Her phone began to ring non-stop. Uche looked at the phone and behold, it was Obi calling. Uche remembered who Obi was but couldn't imagine why Obi would be calling Mary so frequently. Uche noticed Obi's call on 2 other occasions and decided to ask Mary about Obi. Mary swore to Uche that Obi is just her cousin and there was nothing going on between both of them. Even though Uche didn't believe what Mary told him, his love for Mary was so much that he couldn't doubt her, especially as he had no other evidence. That night, Mary couldn't sleep. She was awake for many hours, thinking about what Uche asked her about Obi. Mary had lied to Uche and she was not happy with it. She has noticed that every bad action needs another bad action to cover it up. She is tired of her bad life, especially after she saw the damage that was caused by the sex tapes she leaked online. It's time to end all this drama in her life because she is tired. The following morning, while Uche has gone to work and the whole house was quiet, Mary decided to travel to the future. So Mary began to search for the mirror that was given to her by the guru so that she can travel into the future. She brought out her bag and began to search for the mirror in her bag. At last, she found the mirror in her bag. So she placed the mirror on the table and prepared to travel to the future. This is going to be the first time she will be traveling into the future since she left the guru's house. So she positioned herself as she was taught, said the magic words, and a green ray of light from the mirror sucked her into the mirror. While in the future mirror, Mary saw herself enter a house. The house looked familiar. It was a really happy family and Mary could hear the sounds of children laughing and everyone was happy. When Mary looked very well, she found out that the man in the house was Uche, but the woman was not her. She became jealous of the woman and started destroying all the furniture in the house. Next, she found herself on a busy street. She saw a couple strolling with their child. She noticed that the man was Uche, but the woman was not her. Again, she was so angry and wanted to confront them. But suddenly, the couple and their child disappeared into the crowd. Mary was shocked. She didn't like what she was seeing in her future, so she quickly came back. When Mary returned to real life, she was so tired and she felt a sharp pain on her lap. She knows it from the sore she normally gets every time she travels into the future. She is already becoming used to the sore, so she didn't even look at it. While Mary was still nursing the pain from her sore, she noticed that the mirror in front of her looked different. As she looked at the mirror very well, she saw that the mirror she traveled with was not her own, and she was shocked. Uche had given his mirror to Mary to keep it safe, and Mary kept Uche's mirror where she kept her own. Now she understands why the future she was seeing was all about Uche. She rushed to her bag again and found her own mirror lying in the midst of her belongings. She brought it out and placed it on the table in front of the chair. Even though she was tired, she was eager to go into her own future to see what it holds. She sat in front of the mirror and prepared herself. Her soul was sucked into the mirror by the green light. While in the future, Mary saw herself walking on a beach on a bright sunny afternoon. Soon, the weather changed and the sea became violent. The sea waves began to rise and come towards the beach. Mary saw that the waves were so high and coming so fast towards her. But before she could react, the waves covered her. As the waves were going back into the sea, it carried Mary. Mary was struggling to swim out of the water, but the waves were so strong. Suddenly, a hand grabbed Mary and stopped her from going into the sea. When Mary looked, she saw that it was Obi. Obi carried her out of the water and laid her down on the beach. As Mary was dropped on the beach, her soul turned back from the future and came back to the real world. As Mary's soul came out of the mirror, she started smiling, even though she was in serious pain from the second soul she just had now. Throughout the day, Mary was happy with what she saw about the future because she now has some information that can help her plan her life. That evening, when Uche returned from work, Mary told him that she would be taking him on a dinner date the following day. Uche was so happy about this because it is rare for a Nigerian lady to take a man out on a date. Unknown to Uche, she also called Obi and invited him for a dinner date on the same day. The following day, Mary and Uche set off for their dinner date at a very elegant restaurant in the Lekki area of Lagos. When Uche entered the restaurant, he liked the setting. They both sat down and Uche began to glance through the menu. When he looked up from the menu, he saw a man approaching them. The man pulled out one of the seats and sat down. It was Obi. He just arrived for the date. Uche was surprised. He was expecting to be on a date with Mary alone and not expecting Mary's cousin to join them. He was still confused when Mary began to speak. She narrated her whole life to both of them. She told them how Obi and his friends leaked her sex tape, how she slept with different men in Toby's house, and how she went to the guru's house. Then she continued and told them how she found herself in Uche's house. By the time she finished talking, both of them were shocked at how she had lived this kind of life in a short while. Then she told them, I know both of you want me, but which of you is able to love and marry a broken woman like me? After she said this, there was a long silence. None of the two men said a word. Suddenly, Obi began to shed tears. He knew that Mary went through all this because of him. So he cleaned the tears on his eyes with his handkerchief, stood up from his chair, went to Mary, and gave her a tight hug. Obi then said to her, I will marry you with all your problems, and we will find a way around it all. Uche then stood up, hugged Mary, and went home. 6 months later, Mary wedded Obi, and the occasion was so lovely.